Welcome back to the cave, guys. And today I want to start a new series where we look at some of the baits that we've used but we've yet to fully achieve success with. And they're baits that have a lot of success all across the musky range. We just haven't been able to translate that into success in our boat. And we have been using them, catching some smaller muskies or some pike or some walleyes, which is great, but we haven't been able to kind of crack the code on these baits. So what I thought would be interesting is to talk to the bait builders, get a sense from them what they designed the bait for, what it is that I'm doing personally that maybe doesn't quite fit, or what I can improve to try and increase my catch rate, and how that might translate for you guys looking at some of these baits. So I'm hoping that throughout this series, we can look at some baits that we see a lot of people having success with, but for some of us, we just haven't been able to translate that in our own boat. So the first one I'm going to talk to is Matt Ridgway from Ridgway Customs. And I've been using Matt's baits now for a few years, and I like a lot of things about the bait. I just haven't been able to finally gain that confidence with them. So I'm hoping that through our talk with Matt, it will start to unlock some of the secrets of the bait. And you guys are going to hear in this conversation, which he goes really in depth on a lot of ways to use his baits, that there's some ways in there that I didn't even really think about on how we could apply this bait. So I think this series is going to be really cool for myself, for you guys. And I think by reaching out to some of these builders, we'll get a real sense from them on what it was they had in mind when they were designing the bait. And I hope to try and translate that into some shield talk, because on our channel here, we primarily talk about shield lake fishing. So I want to always have that as the fallback, because I know a lot of you guys come up to shield lakes. So I want to be able to apply what it is that we learn from the builders to shield lake fishing. So let's go dial up our first conversation here with Matt Ridgway from Ridgway Customs. Hey guys, I am here with Matt Ridgway. He builds the Ridgway Customs. And like I've been talking about in today's video, it's a style of lure that I really like. And it's a style of lure that fits really well in shield lake fishing. Matt was kind enough to help set us up with some. I think I bought a few from you. You've gave us some over the years. So I really appreciate the support, Matt. And it's just one of those style of lures that lends itself to fishing the rocks up on the shield lakes. I know you guys down home fish it a little different because you're not on shield lakes, but Matt, welcome, and tell me what makes your lures essentially for you. What's different about them? And just give me a quick, backstory on why it is you started building the lures.
Well, I originally just started fishing for muskies, say like 6 years ago. And my go-to bait in that first year was the 10-inch jig, just like a lot of you guys use. So instantly I was more of a minnow bait guy, a twitch bait guy. So I just wanted to build a lure and catch a muskie on it, And here we are doing this now, It's definitely grown a lot thanks to guys like you. But these in particular, in my opinion, what makes them unique is, and our buddy Matt Vavrock will definitely agree with this, but instead of having a rattle on these baits, it's just got a really unique knock in it, that I don't know, it just, for us anyway, it just really seems to call the fish in. Another thing that I would say that is super unique with these is just the width of the bait. So these things are moving lots of water. Even if these fish are negative and neutral, these things have a presence in the water and they know they're there, So, and that's just the way I feel. I mean, every time I'm out on the water, I expect to catch a muskie. And I think a lot of people do as well.
I would totally agree with that. And I think your baits probably did come onto my radar through Matt Vavrock. He's a big supporter of yours. And when
He
he came
is.
up and fished in Canada with me a couple of years ago, he caught what I think is still to this day his biggest Canadian muskie at, I think it was 46 and change, but a big fat 46.
Oh, it was a thick fish for
It
sure.
was absolutely. I'll put a picture of it right here. And he caught a really nice tiger that day. So I seen that bait in action, and I think he was using a 9-inch in probably similar to this pattern, I believe.
That's the golden perch. That's what
Yeah,
he's using.
and he was using a 9-inch, and I really liked what that bait was doing and where it was riding in the water column. And I had reached out to you, picked up a few baits, and I started throwing them. And to this day, I bet you I've moved easily 2 dozen, probably 3 dozen fish on your baits. I've had a couple on, get off. Nature of crankbaits, you never know if you can get that perfect hook set, but it's always a bait that I reach for. And this past year, I used this 9-inch. This is called the Moon Eye, correct?
The night eye is what I'm
Night Eye,
calling it.
sorry.
Yep. Yep.
And this one, it
It's,
has some beat up marks on
yeah,
it. I put a
got to beat
dress
up.
tail on it. It looks as Cisco Lake or Whitefish Lake in our clear lakes as you can get. And I absolutely pounded this thing around. And it's a bait that I'm not going to give up on because you and I talk a lot away from this. And it's just a matter of time. And I know anything in musky fishing, it's all about confidence. And it only takes 1 or 2 fish, and all of a sudden that confidence just ramps up. I watch a lot of your videos, Matt, when you're fishing your baits, and I'm going to include some underwater footage here, and you and I can talk about it because I think there's something really unique about the way your bait sounds in the water outside of that wobble. But the way you fish them, maybe kind of talk the viewers through your specific pull, pause, or what it is you do, and maybe discuss leaders, because in the underwater footage we're going to see, I believe I have a 9-inch solid wire leader, and that'll be the same through all the underwater footage. But talk us through how it is you use it and what type of gear you use for your baits.
Well, it just goes along with our slogan. Our friend here in Iowa, his name's Pete Hildreth, gave us the idea to use this as our slogan. But there's no wrong way to fish a Ridgway, and there's a certain time and a certain place to use each one of these 2 techniques that I'm going to describe. Now, most of you guys know that I'm primarily using the pull pause. And now what I mean by the pull pause, I'm wanting to rip that thing down as far as it can, and I'm going to let that thing rise. And you'll see when that thing rises, it's like a bubble, you know what I mean? It just kind of shimmies up in the column. And that is exactly when that fish is making its attack, is on the rise. I mean, 80% of the time. And my whole goal was to get the bite out there, not down there, because we're getting a better pin percentage when we do that. So I'm making that thing as erratic as I possibly can when I'm ripping it down, and then I'm just letting it rise. So I'm seeing that bait physically 3 or 4 times within a cast. You know what I mean? So, but there's also the times that the fish aren't responding to that. So we're just going to listen to the fish on this. And it worked for me several times last year where I started off with my typical pull pause, and I went straight to the straight retrieve, burn it in. You know what I mean? And you guys that know, that have used these baits, knows what kind of kick these lures have. So you want to burn it in as fast as you can, and it got a lot of fish for me this year.
That will tie in perfect to us having a look at some of these baits underwater, Matt. And I got some footage here set up. And what we're going to look at here first, guys, is the 6-inch with the metal lip. We're going to look at the 7-inch with the metal lip. And then the only outlier in this first segment will be the 8-inch with the original, I guess that's Lexan lip, Matt?
Yeah, and I will note that I'm not building those anymore. Yeah, you guys up in Canada, northern Minnesota, you're fishing those shallow rocks so much. I'm done with guys breaking lips, and it's not their fault, that's where you're fishing. But that's
Yeah.
why I went with the aluminum, so you can beat them up against the rocks. So that's the future.
And I will caveat that I had a 9-inch 2 summers ago, I think, and actually on video, and I sent it to Matt. And this is just testament to the stand-up guy he is, and almost every boutique builder is. I probably bounced that thing off the rocks a few times, and then just on a cast as it hit the water, that
Yeah.
plastic lip broke.
And
I
it
sent that.
probably cracked or
Yep.
whatever, and then the next cast. So yeah, those problems are definitely over. And
Yep.
every time that did happen, I mean, that's unprecedented because a lot of the baits never broke ever. You know what I mean? So the guys would reach out to me and say, "Hey, man, I broke my lip." You know what I mean? And I replaced them right away as soon as I could.
Yeah, and like I say, guys, that's a testament to what Matt's doing with his baits and taking that feedback from anglers and improving it. That's huge too. So let's have a quick look at this. Will be the 6, 7, and 8-inch baits here in the water. So this is obviously straight retrieve first, and now we got a little bit of that pull pause.
I mean, that rise is just so deadly.
And I will say, because I'm in shallow water, I can't really rip it down and get it to rise up as much as we would like. But here you can see that rise, that little shimmy on it. And this one here, that 8-inch, just has such a wobble.
Oh, they move water.
They do. And we'll really see it here in this pull pause.
Yeah, that's done deal.
That just moves so much water there, Matt. And I'm going to show those same clips slowed down here because I think especially on that 8-inch, you really get to see what you were saying with that wide profile nose. It moves so much water, and you can actually hear, not so much on the slow motion because the audio is kind of slowed down, but you get a sense in the video of that. It's pushing that water.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
just something that, the fish really tune into. So here's slow motion. That little shimmy on that rise there. And you're right. I think almost all the fish come on that little bit of that rise. That 8-inch has so much life to it. Look at that on the straight retrieve.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. It does.
Yeah.
And I got one more clip here, Matt, of the 9-inch, which for all intents and purposes is my favorite size because I think it lends itself
Mine too.
to a perfect presentation mimicking a big Cisco or a whitefish.
And another reason why personally I like the 9 the best, it's the smallest bait I can get 3 hooks on. And anytime I can have that extra hook, I just feel better about a fish hitting it.
Yeah. And we'll run this clip here, Matt, and I want the viewers to listen specifically for that ticking of the hooks. It almost sounds like bells or metal on metal. Obviously, it's the hooks hitting, but it's just got such a unique call to it. So this next clip it's a touch deeper. You can really hear that.
Oh, yeah. And I'm glad that you showed that first one coming in nice and shallow like that, because a lot of guys, they do want to cast it where the muskie's backs are almost out of the water. You know what I mean? They're so shallow.
Yep.
And for me and a lot of guys, I mean, you're going to have to change your retrieve just a little bit, maybe rod up for a couple casts on your twitches, and you can work these in super shallow water as well.
That's something that I learned over the past 2 seasons. And I got one of my biggest walleyes in, I think it was 2023 on that 9-inch. It
Yeah,
was like
I
a
remember that.
28 and a half, but it was
That was a
just
dandy.
it was a football of a walleye. And I cast on top of a reef that tops out at like 3 feet. And I brought it down to make contact, like I brought it in and then I just let it flutter. And then I give it like almost like slow motion, like you would almost do like a walk the dog style reel, just chick, 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 chick,
Yep.
chick, just
Sure.
so it was just dancing over the top. And then as I thought I broke the edge of the reef, I give it one hard pull down and that walleye just crushed it. But
Yeah.
I have had pike hit it the same way on our open water reefs, and I have moved a lot of muskies with that same style. So every time I'm out with it, it's always it's like a learning curve on, okay, I can use this here, I can use that there. And in the video here that the guys are going to watch outside of our conversation, there's a few times where I'm fishing super deep breaks. And what I like about this style of crankbait is I can cast on that really steep breaking shoreline, and I can give it 2 or 3 really hard rips to get it down into that 6 to 8 feet of water, which is really that's kind of like our prime real estate, if you would,
Sure.
for suspended muskies. And I can get it down there and I can let it flutter up just so I can start to see it away from the boat, and a couple more rips. And then you can almost do like that Suick dead stick where it just, it kind of just flutters up to the surface, and you can almost keep it just subsurface or let it hit the surface. And like I say there, Matt, it's for me, it's all about just figuring out what's going to be the trigger. And once I can start to replicate that, it's an amazing lure. You have so much success. Other guys have so much success. I know we will as we keep working at it. What would be your tip for somebody like me, somebody that's watching this, that sees your lures, that picks one up and doesn't instantly get, that confidence in it? What would you give somebody as a tip to try and build that confidence?
Well, I mean, it's always nice to have a smaller bait and a bigger bait. Now, I would consider the 9 into the bigger bait category because you get the 3. And I build 10s and 12s, but 9s, I feel like I'm throwing a big bait with that. But if you're getting your follows and they're lazy and they're not really committed, I would either first try burning one in, you know what I mean, right afterwards. And then if not, I would downsize maybe a 7, maybe a 6-inch bait and maybe get that strike just to give just a little different profile than what you brought them up with, But other than that, I mean, you just, and you just mentioned you kind of work at like a Suick, a lot of times. And that's what I tell guys, I kind of work them like a dive and rise, especially over that second break kind of scenario, because you're wanting to get it down as far as you can, you know what I mean? But you still want your rises, because those rises are so important, whether or not you can see the bait come up or not, you know what I mean? But at that same time, when you're fishing that deep, you got to keep a tight line or else you might not feel that bite, or what have you. So keep a tight line while that bait is rising and hold on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you're saying it's light, or you use it like a dive and rise. That's actually makes a lot of sense to me because we use a lot of dive and rise in our everyday fishing.
And everybody does.
Yeah, everybody does. And I just listened to, I can't remember which podcast it was, and somebody was talking about crankbaits. It might actually have been Tyler Andrews, the Musky Guru, talking about crankbaits and using them as a style of dive and rise.
Yeah.
And maybe if I get my mindset kind of shifted towards using it in that style and not just as a pure crankbait, that would help as well. But I do think you're right on the point there with that tight line. I think a lot of times anglers, especially newer anglers with any type of pull pause bait, they leave too much slack. And a lot of times a fish comes up and just touches the bait. They don't even feel that. And they just go into the next rip and they don't even know. So that's definitely a key takeaway there is tight line. And One thing to circle back around to, Matt, when we talked about leaders, what do you recommend?
And I can only go by the only leader that I've even ever used. I don't use the steel. I use the fluorocarbon. I use 12-inch, and it works out great for me. I do
Okay.
put a split. I do put a split ring on the front eye ring, so that seems to get you a little extra play.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I think in a lot of cases we have started to go that direction with the split ring, especially on something where you know you're going to use a bait, for the duration of that day on that rod.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes sense. One other thing I wanted to kind of just go back to is your idea of using, say, the 9-inch like I like to use, and moving fish and then being reluctant to move down a size. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is something that I know Dave and I struggle with. We get it in our head that we're going to catch a fish a certain way, and sometimes it's hard to just think a little tweak going smaller. We always think we got to do these radical changes, like, oh, the fish are moving on X color of bucktail, we got to go the exact opposite. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not always the case. And I do think your point of maybe just downsizing to that 8 or a 7 could
Yeah.
make all the difference in the world.
It could, and it might not. You know what I mean? It's just muskies are a pain in our ass, right? I mean, more often than not. But that's what makes it the most rewarding when you finally get one in the bag, right?
Absolutely. All right. Well, I really appreciate this, Matt. Show the viewers the few new things you got going there. I
Okay.
know you
Well,
got a couple things.
first, first, I would like to note that these are severely underused in the trolling game. Lots of guys are trolling these, and lots of guys are catching lots of fish that aren't even telling me about it. I'd go to an expo, and they'd come up and say, "Hey, man, I had a 6 fish day on your bait," kind of thing, and they don't even care about the deal I give. But what's unique about these in the trolling game is that they do give you a nice little wander as you're trolling with them. You know what I mean? A lot like the headlocks and that. So, I mean, if it's one of those days where they're off suspended, throw a trolling rod down and maybe that'll work for you.
All
But
right. One quick thing on that. So, on, like, say, the 9-inch or the 10-inch, what type of dive curve would you be looking at with that, just as a ballpark?
the guys, I mean, I don't do a whole lot of trolling, but the guys that do troll them, they're getting them about 8 feet down, 35 feet back, 4 mile an hour. So,
That's
I mean, and it's, there's lots of variables, however you like to troll, I mean, if you're using boards, you can keep them as shallow as 1 foot down, or whatever. So
Yep.
guys that know how to troll can manipulate these any way they want and put them in the column that they want to fish them in. So,
It's interesting that you say that, because Dave and I actually talked about trolling them last year over the edge of that first break line off
yeah.
of main structure. And it's something that I'm sure we will get to as we start to explore some more of your baits. But show us what you got new there, Matt, for this year.
Okay. Well, you guys have seen before the new Softail series I got going on. I'm super excited about this in particular is the Night Eye, the 7-incher. But one thing I haven't released quite yet, and I'm going to release it at the Wisconsin Muskie Expo. So those of you that are going to the expo, you guys will have first dibs at this one. But I have got the 8-inch Softail. And the one thing that I like, and I've been using these and they run awesome, just like in the videos you saw, just with the extra kick of the tail. It's just so awesome when that rise, the tail's still flickering, when it's rising. It is a great bait, but I can get 5 O's on this 8-incher. I can only get 4 O's on the 7-incher. So you can get a bigger hook on there, bigger hook percentage.
That 8-inch looks like that's going to have to make its way up onto Sunset Country, because that's
Are
right
you
in our wheelhouse.
are you a lemon head guy?
I will definitely fish Lemonhead. White actually is a really good color for us on
Is
a
it?
few of our lakes up here with our clearer water. White is a really good pattern. And I'm not going to say which lakes because it might be a little bit of a dead giveaway, but when David's listening to this, he's going to know exactly where I'm talking about right off the
Uh-huh.
get-go. So, and it's hard not to go wrong with white and or black up on the Shield Lakes. I mean, it's the one or the other. Yeah,
That is good to know.
it's
Well, it looks
really
like
good.
you need a new night eye, so I might just throw something white in the box too.
Right on. Well, Matt, I really appreciate this, and I'm sure the viewers will as well. And this is a continuation of the series that I want to look at some of these baits that I love and that I just haven't quite had the success on. And by talking to the builders and learning some of the tips and tricks that you guys have, you'll be able to help me and everybody else have more success. So, Matt
And
Ridgway,
we
thank you.
appreciate you, Glenn. It means the world to us that you're shouting us out like that. And for all of your viewers, go out and get your 54 Bust merch. He just posted a little thing on it. So he's got those trucker hats, he's got beanies, he's got those flannel shirts. Get them.
Right on. Thank you so much, Matt. And we will circle back around with you as we get a little closer to the season.
Sounds good, man.
That was a fantastic conversation I had with Matt. And it's always interesting talking to the builder to hear their perspective on where, when, and how to use their baits. So I really want to thank Matt for that. And I want to say that in the upcoming episodes, I have a few guys lined up. But if you guys have anybody or any baits that you see people having success with, but it hasn't translated for you, put a comment down below and I'll reach out to those bait builders as well. Because I think in a lot of cases, just looking at baits on social media or somebody having good luck with it doesn't always mean we will. And sometimes talking to the builder and getting a sense or a better understanding of what they wanted out of that bait will help all of us, become better musky anglers and give us more options when it comes to lures. To wrap this one up, check the video here where I fish with Matt Vavrock up in one of our favorite lakes, and he gets, which I think to this day is still his biggest Canadian muskie with me, and it was on a Ridgway Custom, and I really got to see those lures that day, and it really opened up my eyes to this ongoing relationship I have with Matt. So check that out, guys, and for now, 54 Bust is out of here. We'll catch you guys out on the water later.
Oh, epic strike.